Welcome to Battletested with Tanya Acker. On my mind are three people. The first is Samuel Gravely, the first African-American to command a Navy battleship, to be a flag officer. He did a whole bunch of other stuff. You probably haven't heard of him. I will talk about him more since we're in a moment, friends, where they're trying to erase my history, not happening on my watch. The second person is Rear Admiral Stephen Barnett, who was recently denied a promotion by this Pentagon, even though his Navy colleagues thought that he was the best qualified candidate to lead bases domestically and overseas. Apparently, he's African-American. He talked too much about Black stuff or tried to recruit Black people. So he lost his promotion. The third person on my mind is Officer Petri Byrd. You know him from the Judge Judy show. I know him from that show. Byrd is a friend. Byrd then was the bailiff on Tribunal Justice, where I appeared for some years. And he's here. Samuel Gravely has passed away. Rear Admiral Barnett is not on the podcast today, but I really do look forward to the chance to talk to him. Byrd is here now, and he's refreshing. It is a refreshing burst of fresh air to have this conversation with Byrd. I love him. You love him. He's funny. He's insightful. He shows up when there's work to be done, and he's shown up here. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Battletested, and enjoy my conversation with Petri Byrd. What are you up to, Byrd? People miss you. What's happening? What are you doing? You're an actor. We all know you as Judy's bailiff, but you've done so many other things. You are out and about. Before we get going into the conversation, tell people what you've been doing over the last few months.
A lot of traveling. My wife and I now went to Ghana, and we've been traveling up and down the East Coast because I got family from Buffalo down to Miami. And so we've been at all points in between. A little side trip to Minneapolis to do some stuff out there for a young man who's trying to bring awareness, anti-violence basketball game that he does annually. And he asked me to come there last year, and I went there for the first time in 2025. And Makita and I went again this year to lend support and everything like that. He's doing a wonderful job. Whatever little acting gigs I can get in between, because I am a thespian. Thank you.
I think that one of the things that people always loved watching you on television is that you would say a lot while at the same time saying very little. You're very expressive, Byrd, as you and millions of other viewers know. Was there a time that you can recall over the decades and decades that you were working on Judge Judy? Was there a time where you were like really surprised or taken aback and had to watch your face? Because sometimes you don't watch your face, like your face speaks. Or was there a time when you were like, damn, I gotta keep it together because this one is just too much?
I spent all my time just trying to maintain some decorum. You know, having been a court officer in New York, judges never really asked you anything. They didn't want your opinion. You know, they just want you to do your job. And so that's what we did. We were these kind of invisible enforcers. And so what I hear from people now, you know, everywhere I go is like, man, you know, I'll be smiling at them and say, oh yeah, we can take a picture. And, you know, and they go, man, I thought you never smile. I go, I smile all the time, man. I'm the jokester dude. You know, I'm the funny guy in my family, you know. And the whole thing about it is that on Judge Judy, I seem very stoic, you know. and people are like, yeah, watch Byrd, because then you'll know where Judge Judy is going. I'm like,
nah,
no, not really.
Not really how it goes.
What? I'm just standing in there listening like y'all listening.
Collaborating on verdicts. I'm just listening to the case. I'm just listening to the case. That's all, and every now and then it's funny because every now and then Judy would say something to me or she would ask me a question and I would go, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. And she goes, you weren't paying attention. I go, yeah, you get paid all that money to listen to them. I just got to be here to make sure nobody come after you. I'm just here to keep you safe. I'm just here to keep you safe.
That's it. As long as there's order in the court, I am doing my job.
And obviously, you and I both know how these shows are produced, and there's other security beyond you and the on-screen bailiffs. But were there times where you were ever concerned about your safety or Judy's safety on the show?
Probably a few times, but one time that I remember the most, there was a guy, very hyphy, and somebody had cheated him out, had gypped him out of about $2,500, right? And so the guy is trying to explain to Judge Judy, and he has this thick Hispanic accent, and as he would get excited, he would pull at the podium in front of him. And that podium is like taped down, right? So I'm standing up there and I'm hearing like, I'm going, oh, he get ready to pull this thing out, and we're taping, So the judge looked at me. I walked over to the guy and I got behind him. I'm like, yo, listen, the judge is listening to you. Just relax. Everything is fine. And he would go, okay. But Your Honor, this charlatan, and he's pulling the thing, and I'm like, don't pull whatever you do, don't pull the podium. You're winning.
Let's not destroy the set.
So I mean, right, exactly. The only other time that I was really, really, really concerned during a taping was when the earthquake hit the first time. Because we actually got hit by an earthquake twice during the 25 years that we were on there. And I just remember the judge looked at me and she said, oh, is that what I think it is? I said, I don't know, but I'll meet you at the plane. Because I was ready to go back to New York with her.
Oh, my goodness. Well, TV court is one thing, but you certainly have had a really illustrious and interesting career as a law enforcement officer outside of television courtrooms. But, one of the things that I've always admired about you, Byrd, and we've talked about it before, this is not your first time on a podcast with me, but what is so powerful to me about you is the work that you're doing in the community for young Black men, for the community at large. I think that right now we are living in a moment that's as fractured as any in my lifetime. We can't say ever. And let's just remind folks, like when people are like, these are the worst times ever. No, they're not. Not ever. They're not that good. I mean, there's some really troubling things. And so before we go into a little more detail, why don't you tell people what the OK program is?
It was founded by a gentleman named Donald Norcross, who is a former deputy sheriff, a Sacramento deputy sheriff. Don, as a Sacramento deputy sheriff, saw, according to him, according to his testimony, he saw a lot of our young African-American males going into the system, but not emerging from the system, and at least not emerging from the system unscathed. And he kept saying to his wife, somebody got to do something about this. And Don is from Little Rock, Arkansas, so he's got this country accent. He said, man, he said, I told my wife, man, baby, somebody's got to do something about this. And she looked at him and she said, yeah, you do something about it. And so he said the next day, he went and talked to some of the teachers at Rancho Cordova High School and asked them, how he could help aside from just arresting young men. And so they agreed to let him come in on Saturday and invite boys in on a Saturday and spend time with them, educating them about things that they should know about, discussing with them the importance of not just being good students, but being good citizens. And so that was unusual for somebody in law enforcement to take that kind of interest. And so he did that, and he started meeting with them every Saturday, what he called kick it sessions, where they just come in and they were free to express themselves and talk about the things that affected them as young Black youth. And then they would feed them lunch and allow them to engage in sports for the rest of the afternoon. And he started doing this, and by the time I came on, it was probably maybe like year 5, year 6. 2 of his boys, I was speaking at an event, and one of his boys came up and said, "Hey, Mr. Byrd, I like what you said up there. I really connected with what you said." Said, "Man, you ought to talk to Depp." I said, "Who's Depp?" He said, "Deputy Norcross, and he gave me his card. I called him, went down to talk to him one day, and we spent maybe 5 hours just sitting there talking about the plight of our youth and how he believed that it was the duty of every Black man to try to help out a young Black man." And he said this wasn't a problem that should be given to somebody else. This was an issue that only we could take care of because we knew our youth. And so and I remember that day he asked me if I would become vice president of his board. And I was like, yeah, apparently that's why I'm here, And so that started a great relationship. I went from vice president of his board to the president of his board, and had remained so until about a year and a half ago when I left the West Coast and moved to the East Coast. But I'm still involved with it. They still call me to come and speak at their special events, and I still keep up with what activities they're doing.
What are the activities, and what are the sorts of things that OK does with these young men?
The OK program, it's unfortunate to say, but where there were as many as 9 different chapters of the OK program around the country, that unfortunately has pared down, and pretty much the only 2 that are left, I think one is in Little Rock, Arkansas. The other one is doing fantastically in Oakland, California. And the one in Oakland, California, a pretty well-to-do individual gave $1 million property for the boys to have a camp that they could go to every year. It used to be that as the boys achieved at least a 2.5 grade point average and perfect or close to perfect attendance at the kick it sessions on Saturday, at the end of the year, at the end of the school year, they would take them on a trip, usually to Magic Mountain or Disneyland or somewhere like that. And then one year they took them up in these mountains. It was about a 6-hour drive from Oakland, and they took them up there, and they just had a great time. They were doing archery and canoeing and basketball and volleyball and all kinds of activities up there. And this gentleman, Mr. Biscacci, who had a business in Oakland, went to Sergeant Smith and asked him, could he donate the OK program. So Sergeant Smith says, yeah, sure, that'd be great. He says, well, that place that you took them, so that they could have a week away from the city and everything and go up and have activities and stuff like that. He said, how much is that place? Sergeant Smith was like, I don't know, maybe $1 million. He says, okay, I'll buy it for him. And he bought the property and invested another $1 million, at least another $1 million, retrofitting it and getting it right for them to be able to have it, year round and stuff and be able to go up there. So those are the type of things that are being done on their behalf. Also, Acts Full Gospel Church had a piece of property that was in need of major repair. Well, they donated that property to the boys as an after-school center.
So people are invested, and the community at large seems to be invested. Who are these kids? Are they young Black men from different backgrounds? Are they kids who've had entanglements with the system already? Primarily, where are they coming?
Primarily, they're just coming from the officers are linked to their schools, okay, and they invite them at the beginning of the semester to come to the OK program. A lot of them is word of mouth, so their friends are going to the OK program on the weekends, and they're like, "Wait a minute, man, when something is good, of course." You want to know,
so this
hey,
is just
how can
for
I be
any
down?
Kid. It's for any kid. It's for any
so
kid.
This is for any kids. Matter of fact, most of the kids, most of them are not in any trouble or any danger of being in trouble. They are in their community, but they're not necessarily products of that community.
I do catch it. And I think given that, it makes my next question even more potent, because I am wondering what you tell these young men these days, given the particular climate that we're in. And I will be specific because, I don't know, I know you saw the New York Times piece about Rear Admiral Stephen Barnett, African-American man. He was the Navy's number one choice in the United States Navy, to get a promotion and to oversee bases here and internationally. And the current Secretary of Defense, Hegseth, blocked the promotion because apparently this man, who was viewed by his Navy colleagues as the number one choice, had at some point spent too much time talking about trying to increase the representation in the Navy of people of color, where they are very much still underrepresented. So for the sin of trying to make the Navy more inclusive, and even though he was the number one pick, he doesn't get the job, and the job goes to the number 3 pick, who was the number three guy. Who was white. So as I read that story, and I think about the sorts of lessons that folks like you and I, the aunties and the uncles are saying to those younger than us, when we're like, put your head down, do the work, the glory will come, the justice will come. Then you read a story like this, and I was like, I got to talk to Byrd because if you,
and you got to file it under SH.
Happens,
Shit happens,
but
right?
We can't really be that flip about it, because folks like you and me and like many, many other people who have really invested time trying to get young people to, do the right thing, dig in, work hard, do the thing. And then when they see something like this, which is, you know what, you can do the right thing. All of my colleagues can say that I'm the best, but somebody then can show up and say, yeah, but you kind of might be talking too much Black stuff, even though you're really good. What do you say to these young men when you hear about something like this? I mean, we're now seeing the best and the brightest be vilified. and denied.
The advice for this moment is know your history. You have to know your history. And I don't mean to sound flippant about it. We can't be surprised at how we're being treated, because this isn't something like, oh, okay. During their lifetime, everything has been, a crystal. Yeah, life for them has been this crystal stair. It hasn't. What the young folks do that is problematic, if you will, is they kind of put their head in the sand, or they put their face in these phones, and they're getting all their information in little tiny chunks. They're watching movies that are 2 minutes long. Okay. But there are 40 different episodes. And it's like, wait a minute, your attention span is that short? You and I, we read the newspaper, we read articles, those articles had a historic value to them, and then they had an informative value to them. What they're watching now, they're seeing little chunks of information, but there's no analysis to it, and there's no discussion with it. They're not talking about it with anybody. They're just looking at it, and they keep on pushing. We have to continue to encourage them to be educated, okay? Because when this comes at you, you need to recognize it for what it is. This is not as with Admiral Barnett. This isn't a matter of, he's not qualified. We dug up something in his past which would preclude him from, getting this position. That's not the case. But it's never been the case. It's never been the case. It's always been that we're good enough, we're smart enough, we're more than able. But when it comes for chances for opportunity, they push us aside, or they claim that we're taking somebody else's spot. Whose spot am I taking? If this is for me, if I am the one that is best suited and most prepared in order to do this, why shouldn't I do it? According to them, it's a meritocracy or something? It's a meritocratic or something like that is the word. But in other words, they're saying it's based on merit that you get this position. Who was more meritorious than this admiral?
The number one choice.
Right. He stopped. I was reading how he contained this contamination of oil on this base in Hawaii, and that made thousands of people sick. But it could have been far worse. But if that's not meritorious, if that's not heroic in its effort, then who are you saying is better suited? But then look at who your Secretary of War.
So what do you say to these young? What do you say to these young men? Because if you are trying to ensure, as you said at the top of the conversation, that somebody is responding to them, who knows where they are, who knows what they are having to engage with, who knows the assumptions that are made about them when they're walking down the street, as opposed to other kids. If having that sort of connection is important, then they are going to hear something from you that they may not necessarily digest if it's coming from someone else. And if you are trying to reach this kid and ensure that he doesn't look at this blip, like this moment in time, like as you said, like it's a vertical. So we only got 2 minutes. So my 2 minutes are the 2 minutes where you can be black, do a really great job, be the number one pick, and then not get it because somebody thinks you're too black. That's a moment in time. So how do you convey to these young people that this is just a moment in time? Your time is bigger than this, and you need not be limited by the unfairness or the injustice that you're seeing right now.
Be prepared. Your time is coming. Your time is coming. they won't be able to deny it to you for long. It won't always be like this. And I know that sounds kind of hokey, but that's the best that you can give them, that you have to hold on, because there's going to come a time when they'll look to give somebody an opportunity who's more than qualified and who's prepared. But it's like you being on a job and you get passed over for this position, and you go, that's it, man, I quit. Okay. And what happens then? What happens then? No, my mother used to tell me, she'd go, you stay in there. Let me tell you this. When I became a court officer in New York, you know how long it took me to get the job? 2.5 years. 2.5 years. Now in New York, you got a lot of people, right? So when I took the test, I was number 374 on the list. Out of over 50,000 candidates, I was number 374. But every time I turned around, something kept, it was almost like every part of that test, I had to take it over. And when I took every part over and passed it, they still refused me. So I had to go and I had to write up my own appeal letter and everything like that. And I remember I went in that day and there was a panel. There was a panel of 3 judges, right? And they're sitting there and I walk in and they said, we're going to keep it simple. Why do you want this job? I hadn't thought of the answer beforehand, but I said, you know what? I think that I would be an asset to the Court Officers Association. And I passed everything more than once. I just think that if you give me an opportunity, I will show you what it is to be a court officer. I can show you what a court officer is supposed to be. I said, but if you don't give me the opportunity, if you don't let me try, then you'll never know. But I know. And I walked out, and I remember the person who was doing my background check stopped me at the elevator. He said, I don't know what it is you said in there. He said, but they're seriously thinking about giving you this job. I said, okay, well, I'm seriously thinking about taking it too, And, listen, from that humble beginning, being ready, being prepared, knowing who I am, I become the guy on TV who's like the world's court officer. So I'm the world's bailiff, one of the best.
So it really is, it's a lesson in and another example of just keeping it moving forward. I mean, you and I have worked on projects for the USS Iowa. I'm on the board.
Oh, yeah.
We've worked on the Admiral Gravely celebration. Samuel Gravely was the first African-American to command a Navy battleship, amongst many, many other things. And so, when you think about, and you very graciously participated in our Gravely Award ceremony one year. And so when I think about the story of Rear Admiral Barnett, and then I put it in the context of Admiral Gravely. So Gravely did things that folks before him never thought would happen. Barnett did things that I'm sure folks before him didn't think would happen. And he faced what I think many people, and it's not just, it is certainly not just Black folks who are saying this. Many people really think that this was a real injustice and frightening. What you said is a great reminder for us all that we just have to remember that we will continue to create other history. We will continue to create other moments, and we need everybody's energy, and we need young people to stay engaged. This is just one moment. Life is not a vertical. American history is not a vertical. It doesn't just happen in 2-minute increments. So when you think about your work with OK, is there a student, a young person whose story really is emblematic of what it is you want this program to accomplish, either because of something that kid went through or their experience in the program? Is there something you could share about how it's moved or impacted you personally?
It's wonderful because we have thousands of stories. One I remember really quick. I used to shop at the Men's Warehouse. Still do, and I remember one day I was in there and I was watching them. They were dressing some boys for prom, so they were renting them. And so I asked the guy, I said, let me ask you something. I said, what'll happen when these boys finish prom? What? He said, well, they'll just bring back the suits and that'll be it. I said, but they wouldn't have learned anything, about, what it is to dress for an occasion or to dress to impress or to be prepared to go in for an interview, right? And so the guy goes, no. I said, so can I bring some boys in here and you'll do what you do so well, which is educate people as to, how to start to build a wardrobe and, what to wear, what matches and, what's informal, what's formal, what's semi-formal. And the guy goes, yeah, just talk to my manager. So I go and I talk to the manager and they agreed to open up the Men's Warehouse an hour earlier. That is so
rude.
No,
I'm not quite sure how it happened. Oh, you know why? Because it's on Do Not Disturb, but that was my mom, and she gets to bypass my Do Not Disturb. She's so great. And I'm going to tell her you said, hi, Mom.
You make sure
I'm interviewing Byrd.
Oh,
that's why. Because when my mom calls, I'm interviewing Byrd, who says hi. By the way, my parents love you. They really do. You would show up they just love you.
I love them.
They're doing really well.
They're doing well.
Part of the reason they love you, might just keep all of this in here, because you were talking about taking these young men to the store and getting them outfitted. Yes. So pick that up.
Right. They agreed. They opened up the store an hour early. One in Rancho Cordova, which was near the high school that every Saturday the boys would meet for their kick-it session. And so it was nice because for a change, the boys were going on a little field trip instead of just being cooped up in the all-purpose room at the high school. So we took them down there to the Men's Warehouse. And it's funny because one of the models that the Men's Warehouse used was my 16-year-old son. I have the pictures till this day. Like I'll be sitting watching TV and all of a sudden the picture will pop up of this young man showing my son how to tie a tie. Now I could have shown my son how to tie a tie, but it was so good coming from, a professional at the Men's Warehouse. And there was another young man at that particular workshop that wanted more than anything to put on a tuxedo. All right. He was about 13, 14 years old. And he kept saying, Mr. Byrd, can I put on a tuxedo? And so I asked one of the customer service guys, I said, hey, could you dress him in a tuxedo? To this day, that young man, every time I see him or anytime we connect, he goes, Mr. Byrd, I remember the tuxedo, and that's just one thing in his life, but it let him know the possibilities, and that's what we have to make sure that we let our young men and our young women know that the possibilities are endless. They are as endless as your imagination. But just remember that you are the star of that show. Okay? That's all you have to do is remember that you are the star of that show. And delayed doesn't mean denied.
I find the story of this young man wanting to try on a tuxedo more moving than than it might first appear. I mean, yeah, he wants to try on a tuxedo, but to me, what I'm hearing when you tell that story is a young man who wants to see himself in a certain way and who wants to be seen in a certain way and who wants to have the opportunity to move in the world with a certain, in a certain way. And just the mere fact of being able to see himself in that way, I think, is a boost of confidence. And so this is what I was starting to say. This is why my parents love you. This is why I love you, because you step up and you show up and you make a difference in someone's life. And I think that that's really the lesson that I'm taking from this, is that, we can talk about stuff all we want. We can get mad about what we're seeing on the news and the paper, what's happening or not happening. But really, if you're in battle, you got to do something. And what you are doing, my friend, is really making sure that these young people are seen. And that's more rare than, frankly, than it should be. You stay in touch with this. Oh, you do stay in touch with him. You said he talks about that. He talks about putting on that tuxedo.
He's a chef. He's a chef, and has a wife and a child, and so things that I guess things that he saw that he wanted to happen in his life started to come true.
Do you feel hopeful?
Yes. There are days where it's like, oh, really? This is the, but I always think back, our grandparents must have looked at our parents like, huh. And our parents must have looked at us like, oh, I can't believe that. Yeah. So we have to have confidence that God is bigger than any of these circumstances, and that the plans that God has for our children, they far outweigh our imagination or our limitations. If we trust that God has something special for them, has a purpose for them, our job is to continue to guide them and continue to remind them that God is bigger than any situation they find coming up against them.
Something else you said, confidence and faith, and that necessarily leads to having faith in oneself. How are you communicating to young men these days a message of confidence and self-confidence? And that's different from ego. Ego is, I got this, I got blah, 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 blah. Confidence is something deeper. Confidence is when you read a story about an injustice, you know it's an injustice, you call it out for the injustice that it is. You don't put your head in the sand, but you say, I am not going to let that injustice shake me. So how do you instill confidence in a community where really, on all sides, there are messages and assumptions being made that suggest you are less than. And if you got it, you got too much, and you shouldn't have more than I am, and you probably don't deserve it, and don't get too uppity with yourself. How do you communicate confidence in that sort of environment?
I try to let them know that your crowd determines your course. It's if you hang out with bums, chances are very good you're going to be a bum. So hang out with the people that are, what I always say, that are doing what it is you want to do. Make yourself available. Let them know that this is what you want to do. Okay. So the three things I always push for is you have a passion. There's something that you want to do, that you're willing to do, even if you don't get paid for it. It's just a part of you. It's ingrained in you. You have to do it. Okay. Then there's the talent for it. So, check it out. If you love to sing, but you can't hold a note, you're going to have a problem. So make sure that you have a talent in that area, Yeah. And the other thing is sharpen your skills in that area. So don't just think that because, hey, all those people over there said they like the way I sing. No. There's somebody who's studying singing. Okay. They're studying singing. They're not as gifted as you are naturally, but they do have a passion for it, but they're willing to do what they have to do in order to achieve that. And so when you mix those three things together, the passion, the talent, the skill sharpening, then that means that you're prepared. You're preparing yourself for the opportunity, And that's what makes the difference. That's where the confidence comes in. Not, hey, I can sing. Hey, I can play ball. Everybody can play ball.
Not everybody.
An art teacher once told me.
Everybody can't.
Well, they can't play ball to the point you like it, but an art teacher. I used to work at high school, and an art teacher told me. I went in his room and I looked up on his wall, and there were these great works of art. There was these, that I would buy. And I went, wow, man, is that your senior class? He said, no. He said, those are the freshmen and those are the sophomores. And so I said, wait a minute. You had that many prodigies that come in here? He says, no. He said, every kid is an artist. It's the first time that somebody can't recognize what it is they're drawing or they're creating that they get discouraged and they stop. He said, what I do is I encourage them to continue using their imagination. And he says, I show them some simple things. He said, 3 simple figures, a triangle, a circle, and a square. He said, everything is composed of those geometric shapes. He says, and I just show them how to proportion it and how to fill it in. And what you see up there is the product of. And from then on, I was a believer. So I don't discourage anybody. I have a grandson who's on the spectrum. He loves art. And he does it so well, that he's venturing into doing animation and stuff like that. He's 11 years old. But my thing is, my daughter doesn't stop him from fulfilling what's in him, what the imagination that's stirring in him. So she found out that, he's able to do that, where on an emotional level, he may be stifled. When it comes to artwork, he's free. And watching him do it is incredible because it's like, what it is. You know exactly what he's drawing and he creates a story behind it. And it's wonderful, So there's always hope.
There's always hope. There's always hope. And everybody has a thing. Like we can all find our thing. And Byrd, you are entertaining, you are funny. You are a true warrior for your community and for our community, and frankly, for the community of young people in this country who need to make sure, or who need mentors who see them and will teach them confidence and remind them that they are bigger than whatever injustice they may be seeing or hearing or reading about. So thank you for doing those things, and thank you for being here today. I know you're coming back with a very special guest, and we will have more to say soon, but I am so grateful to you for your time and for your work, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing.
All right, Byrd, more later.